What's going on YouTube? I am back with another video today. By popular demand, I have had tons of comments asking me about how to unload your golf shaft. So we're going to talk about that right now. Let's get into it. Unloading the golf shaft is actually one of the most important aspects of your golf swing for creating effortless speed. So while it is primarily talked about in the long drive community, it's actually incredibly important in the golf community because A, the unloading and timing of your shaft is how you're going to hit the ball straight, and B, the timing of your shaft and unloading your shaft efficiently directly at the ball is going to lead to further drives and effortless speed. This is why all PGA pros look like they swing so slow, but it's so efficient that it's actually fast versus a very hard swing. So let's start by talking about what unloading your shaft actually is. That was clean, wasn't it? All right, so we're gonna start by talking about unloading your shaft with the lag shot. This is a super bendy club, so it'll help demonstrate it. We had an entire video, which we will link above. If you haven't seen it, go check out how to load your golf shaft and the timing of loading your golf shaft, which is at the top of your swing, it loads. Now we're gonna talk about the unloading aspect. So the unloading aspect is when your shaft at impact has released all tension of the club. Typically speaking, on your downswing, you are holding lag and your shaft will look like this. Now it depends on CPMs and stiffness of your shaft, but more or less your shaft is holding all that energy back and waiting to release it at the ball. Releasing the lag too early is unloading your shaft, say back here, and then it's not going to kick efficiently at the ball. Likewise, if you hold that lag too long and don't unload it until out in front of the ball, you're now dragging through the zone, hitting the ball and losing all that energy. So the goal of unloading your shaft is to efficiently unload your shaft directly at the golf ball. So whether you have a very whippy shaft, a very stiff shaft, it does not matter. Your shaft is still holding energy in, so it's energy into the shaft on your backswing, and on your downswing, we want that energy out of the shaft to be timed perfectly at the golf ball. So let's talk about what actually makes the shaft kick the golf ball. The kick of the club head is caused by your hand slowing down. It's a weird thing to think about, but in your golf swing, if we go in super slow motion, your hands are moving at the fastest around here, and into the ball, they actually start slowing down to allow this club head to catch up. If you never allowed the club head to catch up and kept your hands moving at the exact same speed through your whole swing, you are swinging like this, your hands will be way out here, and the head is going to be way behind the golf ball. So in order to get this club head to kick, your hands actually have to slow down and almost stop. So let me break out a towel to show you exactly how this is done. Okay, so this is a great analogy for this because it actually helps to understand how your hands actually slow down. It's the same principle as more force one way is more force the other way. So if I was trying to snap this towel, which I am terrible at snapping towels, you can see that as I start, we'll slow this down for you too. If you guys can watch my terrible towel snapping. But as we slow this down, you can see that my wrist stops to let this towel fully extend and snap this way. Same principle in the golf swing. So, same principle in the golf swing. When my hands stop and actually inevitably come back and up just a hair, if you're doing it very efficiently, your hands will stop and come up that way. You can see that when I do that, the club head starts to kick. So as my hands in my downswing start to slow, they'll end up kicking at the golf ball. Now, how to actually get your hands to slow down and what that feels like is dependent more so on your grip than anything. So that's the biggest thing we're going to talk about in this video, is what that feeling is for you depending on your grip. If you have a very strong grip, I'm going to talk about strong grip first because I have a strong grip, you're going to be more reliant in your swing on radial and ulnar deviation. So that's wrist moving side to side essentially. This motion, when you have a very strong grip, is what's going to control the club head actually releasing, because as I slow my hands down and inevitably snap my wrist, because that's the slowing down motion, you can see that it's a ulnar and radial deviation that causes that. If you have a very weak grip and you're in this position, typically those are going to be somebody who has a bowed wrist at the top of their swing or more of a neutral grip. So if you have a really, really weak grip, you're going to be more reliant on flexion and extension of the wrist moving this way to actually get your hands to stop and get the club head to catch up. So those are two feels that you can have depending on your grip to actually get that to happen. So ultimately it comes down to that, is stopping your hands at impact, pulling them slightly backwards to allow that club head to kick at the ball. Now I want to touch on something that I said earlier, which was the CPM and stiffness of your golf shaft. CPMs, for those of you that don't know, is essentially just ranking the stiffness. So instead of saying like extra stiff, stiff, regular, senior flex, it actually puts a number to how stiff the shaft is so that it's a little bit more detailed. Regardless of all that information, sorry about that, regardless of that, the stiffer the shaft is, the more of a band-aid effect that you're gonna have, that it's actually not loading as much and it's not kicking as much as the ball, but it's still doing that, so you still have to time your shaft correctly. But that's why fast swingers, typically on the PGA Tour, are gonna use a stiffer setup because they want more of a band-aid so that there's less shaft movement, whereas your long drive pros are gonna get something incredibly flexible so that they can maximize the load and maximize the unload of the golf ball to get max speed. Your senior golfers who need a little bit more speed, they want the shaft to be a little bit more flexible so that it can unload for you and start creating more speed. That unloading at the golf ball, that extra snap, is going to be able to generate a lot more speed for you. So while even a stiffer setup is not going to load and unload as much as a whippier setup will, it is still incredibly important to actually time your golf shaft and start to feel when it is kicking in your swing. A swing that you never actually unload the shaft fully, the shaft's going to stay fully back, your arms are going to never slow down, and it's just going to drag through the zone. That is a terrible swing. You're going to have horrible accuracy and you're going to have no speed. It's going to look like this. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if your shaft loads and unloads too early, now all of a sudden, A, you're losing all that energy, so it's not gonna kick the ball, you're gonna actually drag it through the zone. But B, when this shaft unloads, you can see the vibration in it. So when you unload the shaft too early, this shaft is gonna act like this on the downswing, and that's gonna create a lot of issues in ball striking. So we want you to be a good ball striker, we want you to have a fast swing, and we want you to be accurate. Those three things are solely tied, I wouldn't say exactly solely, but they're very, very important in the aspect of actually knowing when your shaft is unloading in your swing. So here's what unloading your shaft too early in the downswing looks like. Last piece of this is obviously good timing of your golf shaft. So essentially get that ball into the position where you want to hit it in your stance. Then I want you to essentially put the club down right in between, basically on your left groin. So while it's sitting there, your swing, your hands are going to be moving about max speed and start to slow down into that position. Once they hit that position, that's when you're really gonna have maximum unloading of the golf shaft and let that head catch up. For slower swingers, you're gonna obviously need to start slowing down your hands earlier, giving this more time to catch up. Because if I'm swinging very slowly, it takes a long time for the head to catch up. For a fast swinger, the faster you stop your hands, the more that kicks and the quicker it'll catch up. But more or less that's around the timing of where you want your hands to actually be at almost 0 miles per hour so that this can actually kick at the ball. A good swing would look about like this. So this was a very basic overview of how unloading your golf shaft occurs. Hand movement is slowing down, moving back, depends on your grip, whether you're feeling ulnar and radial deviation, feeling more flexion and extension of the wrist, but ultimately it comes down to this. Properly unloading your golf shaft and having that be very efficient, no matter what CPM or stiffness of shaft you're actually using, is going to be the difference between a smooth and efficient, fast and far swing, or a hard swing that you just have absolutely no control of and no feel of whatsoever. I'm going to cut the video off right there. I definitely could have made this a much longer video, but I wanted to keep it relatively short and brief for the first introduction of unloading the golf shaft. Go try this out, see what you feel like at impact. There are actually some softwares that you can download that tell you exactly what your hand speed is throughout your entire swing. You can see where you're slowing down your hands, where you're actually allowing that shaft to catch up. If you're interested in that application, let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.